Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 very popular books that I need to read. Many of these have been on my pile for donkey's years, mule's years, a long time. And so they are titans of the genres across many, from fantasy to fiction to horror and so on and so forth. So I'm going to kick it off with one that it's almost a crime I haven't read it. I talk about my love for Robin Hobb a lot, but I've only read her 3 trilogies that feature the same cast of characters. So I have skipped, shamefully, The Live Ship Trader. So I need to read Ship of Magic. A lot of people say that until they read the final trilogy in The Realm of the Elderlings, that this is actually their favourite, which blows my mind, because all 9 books that I've read by Robin Hobb are beyond exceptional, and I hold them in a very dear place in my heart. So I do not know why I've not picked Ship of Magic up yet. Maybe it's that fear that maybe it's not going to hold up to those expectations, but that's not a good enough reason to not pick something up, because you're scared you're going to love it or not love it as much as other people think. I'm still so excited to read Ship of Magic, and I need to pick it up. It's very high on the pile, but I just need to take the time to force myself to actually pick it up and start, because I'm sure once I do, I will not be able to stop. And then next up, I've got a classic, very different genre. I've got The Godfather. So Mike Bit Reviews was talking about this. I believe last year he read it in 2023, and he adored it, and he absolutely loves the films. Obviously, films 1 and 2. I don't think there are any beyond those 2, actually. But yeah, the films, but The Godfather 1 and The Godfather 2 are 2 of my favourite films of all time. I absolutely adore them. Everything about them is just brilliant. And so, of course, I need to read the root material. Papa Gwyn has also read The Godfather. He said similar things to my book reviews, actually. There's a few characters you follow that weaken it slightly, but for the most part, it is just pure brilliance. And so I really cannot wait to read The Godfather. I love those themes. I know it's romanticised slightly, but I love those themes of family, duty, and kind of doing what's right for the people you love, even if you're doing pretty bad things to other people. But it's about family first. I'm not saying I condone it, but I'm saying that I love to read about it and follow it in film as well. And so I cannot wait to read The Godfather. And it's another, of course, a very popular book that has been out for many decades now. And then I'm talking about this because I recently received the special edition from the Broken Binding of Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is meant to be fantastic with the character work. I think that it's meant to be a little bit divisive in that the use of timelines. Some people, they find it very jarring, but a lot of people love it because it jumps from the present to the past. And so I think, as someone who in other books I've really enjoyed that, I feel like this could be a book for me. And apparently it prioritizes those character relationships. And so that's another thing I love. I'm here for the characters first and foremost. And so Lies of Loch Lamora sounds like a book for me. And it's, of course, I think it's been out 15 years now. I think he came out the same year as Joe Abercrombie with the first Law. And so, yeah, I think that's about 15 years ago. And, yeah, Lies of Loch Lamora has become one of the titans of fantasy. And so it's one that I really need to knuckle down and pick up. And talking about titans of fantasy that I have not read yet, I need to start the Malazan. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm sure Philip Chase will tell me how to say it correctly, and so will Matt's Fantasy Reviews as well. They're 2 channels that I have followed for so long, and they both absolutely rave about Malazan. Sorry, about the Gardens of the Moon, I will say, which is book 1 of that series, I'm sure, as you all know. And I've heard that you should try the first few. The next one is called Deadhouse Gates, and I'm not quite sure what the third one is called. But when I pick up Gardens of the Moon, I will definitely, even if that doesn't click with me, I will definitely be reading book 2, Deadhouse Gates, as well. And this is another series that can be quite divisive. It is huge. It can be very confusing. One that you need to put a bit of research into and really activate your thought cage, as Papa Gwyn would say in The Bloodsworn. But that's not going to put me off. I just know that at the moment I'm jumping between uni reading and other stuff. I think that I need something, when I'm not reading those dense uni academic materials, I need something that isn't as heavy. And so now isn't the right time, but maybe in summer. Maybe, we will see. But yeah, Gardens of the Moon is certainly on the pile of very popular books that I'm very interested to read. Next up, I've got another classic, some horror, and I have Dracula by Bram Stoker. I absolutely love the Gothic genre. I really love how the styles are very authentic, the prose is, but it's very original, and I love the kind of the motifs and the themes that we see in those Gothic texts. And so, how have I not read possibly the most famous of them all, which is Dracula? I believe this is told in the epistolary form, so it's a diary, or maybe that's only part of it, but I'm very interested to see kind of the layout of Dracula, and this is one of Papa Quinn's favourite books of all time. Of course, it has gone on to inspire generations of tales and takes on the vampire. I'm not including Twilight in that, although it was inspired by Dracula. So yeah, it's influenced Twilight, which has had a big impact on film, especially, and books in the 21st century. So I'm not sure if people will be happy about that, but it all stemmed from Dracula. And so I cannot wait to read this. As I'm saying, and as I'm sure you're going to get bored of me saying, I cannot wait to read all of these. And so yeah, that's going to be something I repeat myself today. So yeah, be prepared for that. Next up, I have some Cormac McCarthy, one of my favourite authors of all time. And this is All the Pretty Horses. So I'm not actually sure what this is about, but I love The Road, I love No Country for Old Men, I love Blood Meridian, I love The Passenger, and so yeah, onto another Cormac McCarthy read, I say, and I cannot wait. My brother Ed is far more well versed in Cormac McCarthy texts, and he's probably read I think 9 of them now, maybe 10, and so yeah, there's very few that he's not picked up basically. And he said All the Pretty Horses he thinks should be the next book by Cormac McCarthy that I read. I think he said on a second reading The Crossing is actually one of his favourite books of all time. And so this is a trilogy, so All the Pretty Horses book 1, then The Crossing is book 2, and then book 3 is called Children of the Plain. So this is the whole series altogether. And so yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading all of them, but I've picked out All the Pretty Horses to see how I feel, because if it doesn't really click with me, I may try another Cormac McCarthy book before returning to the series, but I feel pretty confident, as I do whenever I pick up a Cormac McCarthy book. He's just such an incredible author, and I'm not sure there's anyone like him in the way that he can alter his style so differently from text to text to text. He truly is, whether you click with his works or not, I think most people can agree that he is just an absolute genius of a writer. And yeah, I cannot wait to pick up All the Pretty Horses. And then I have something of a very different genre, quite a varied amount here. I've got The Shadow of the Wind, which is, I believe, a mystery mix of some romance and historical fiction, and literacy and books play a huge role in it. And so I know some people, some friends of mine, who absolutely love this series, and yeah, it's one that I really need to pick up. And I've got it in my hand, but I mean pick up as in physically read it. And so I think there's 4 books in this series, but I'm not completely sure. I think you can read this as a standalone. If I'm wrong, please do correct me in the comments below. But it's one of those that, whereas I know a lot about quite a few of these books here, I know a lot less about this one, but it just grips me. Every time I pick it up, I just feel an urge to read it, but I just don't have time at that moment, or I'm currently reading something else. But yeah, it's interesting when a book really just, you gravitate towards it, and usually that is a great sign for a book that you are hopefully going to love. At least for me, that has been the case many, many times. And then I have Ninth House by Leah Bardugo. So I think there's 2 books in this series out now. It's Alex Stern, I think it's called it, after the titular character Alex Stern. And this is adult fantasy. Leah Bardugo writes a lot of more YA or younger fantasy, but this is her adult fantasy series, as I just said. And I've heard brilliant things about Ninth House, and it's another one I know next to nothing about, but I am very intrigued to find out more. And so that's one I can't really say much more, but it's fantasy, it's Leah Bardugo, one of the characters is called Alex Stern. That's basically all I know, really. And then I've got 2 more. I've got a Western, Lonesome Dove. This has really exploded onto fantasy booktube over the last year. Obviously it is a Western, very different, but it is an epic. My brother Ed absolutely loves Lonesome Dove, and since then there's booktubers who are great and have given me so many recommendations, such as Matt's Fantasy Reviews and Mike's Book Reviews, who say that Lonesome Dove is one of the greatest books of all time, and so they've joined Ed there. And yeah, I really need to read it. It's a chunky book though, so I need to take my time. But Ed did say, I think this was his way to try and get me to read it. He said one of the characters reminds him a lot of me. I'm not sure if that's just his way of trying to get me to pick it up, but if so, it's very clever, and to be fair, it deserves for me to pick it up, because that is a good way to make me pick up a book. So I'm intrigued to see if that's an insult or a compliment. I'm never sure when it's Ed. He does love to annoy me a bit, so that's brotherly love, isn't it? And then last up, I have The Shining. Got to chuck some Stephen King in there. I think I've read 8 books or short stories by Stephen King now. So far, Misery has been my favourite, but I've loved ones such as Salem's Lot and Later as well, and many of the others. And so The Shining is the next on the list. I think after that I'll try The Green Mile, but I'm very open to suggestions. With those being named as my favourites, what would you recommend? Stephen King lovers out there, what do you think should be the next one that I pick up? I think he has a short story collection coming out soon, or maybe it came out recently, so I'm interested to pick that up just because a lot of people will be talking about it. And one of the reasons I'm on BookTube is to talk about books that are coming out and be able to be part of that community and be part of the fun of a book coming out and everyone discussing it. So maybe that'll be the next Stephen King I pick up, but for now it'll be The Shining. That'll definitely be the next one, and I think it's fair to say it's quite popular. Maybe a few people have heard of it, but yeah, maybe not too many. But yeah, that is The Shining, and that is in total 10 books, very popular books that I intend to read at some point. They won't necessarily be over the next few months, but they're the 10 that when I scoured my shelves on my list of my TBR, they're the ones that really leapt out to me as very popular books that I've heard so much hype about, that I'm really looking forward to reading. And so yeah, please let me know, are there any titans of genres that you read that somehow you have not read yet? Because it almost feels like a crime for a lot of these to say that I've not read them. Even though, of course, it isn't, but it seems like I should have my BookTube license revoked from me for not reading these, and so maybe I'll go on a binge of reading a lot of these to right those wrongs. And so obviously that shouldn't be a reason you read books, but it's something that might motivate me. And when so many people love a book, it doesn't mean you will as well, but it's often a pretty good sign. And so yeah, these are 10 books that a lot of people love, and I hope that I will as well. Everyone, thank you so much for watching, and stay safe.